Welcome to the Doomscroll News Report here on Radio Taiwan International, where I, Hannah Belinsky, and my co-host,
Amanda Stevens,
two writers, political by necessity, cover some of the biggest international news stories dominating our news feeds from the last week. I'm Hannah Belinsky, and this week we're talking about North Korea's involvement in Russia's war in Ukraine, China hiking taxes on condoms and birth control, and the billionaire yacht party that took place New Year's Eve. I know the People's Liberation Army did a big, stupid military drill all around Taiwan earlier this week. I really don't want to talk about it, okay? And it's not that it's not doomscroll worthy. I certainly doomscrolled about it. I just read and wrote about it too much this week, and I'm sick of it.
Just like, if you want to hear about it, listen to our news.
Yeah, exactly.
We covered it a lot in our news over the last week, and you can learn about that by listening to our news, which is also on the website.
That's
and
right.
If you're on radio, then you're probably as sick of it as we are.
Yes.
So,
anyway, Amanda, how was your New Year's Eve?
It was really good. But
did you go out or stay in?
We wanted to go out, but I was too late to make plans because we talked about getting a little bit overwhelmed during the holidays. So because of that, I didn't make plans in time, but we still had fun. We had a party over at a friend of mine's house. And so everybody brought stuff. We had a big old potluck. We did a little quiz that another one of my friends made about 2025. We watched the fireworks from the safety of indoors. Safety because it was cold and rainy in Taipei.
It was
I'm not
wet.
about that. And then we made 2026 bingo cards.
Very nice.
And yeah, I'm peopled out. It doesn't happen to me very much.
I was about to say, this must be quite rare.
I don't like staying by myself, but I feel like this January I need to just
chill.
Recluse.
Just chill. This was the first New Year's in a long time that I did not make it to midnight. I was sleepy.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, my son knocked out at 9:30. Yes, because he was
awake did he wake up again at New
He
Year's?
wasn't awake. I remember because I took a picture of the two of us. I was holding him and he was just asleep. But the thing about it was he was so little, he needed to be held all of the time.
Yeah.
And if I set him down, he would go off like a bomb. So, so unfortunately, it was either I was holding him or Dad was holding him. And it happened to be my shift around midnight. So that's how I rang in the new year.
How thoughtful.
Well, let's talk a bit about how North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, rang in 2026.
Oh, yes.
According to the Wall Street Journal, at his New Year's address, Kim publicly reinforced and, in fact, celebrated North Korea's deepening military partnership with Russia. He praised troops who have supported Russia's war effort as a source of national pride. And he emphasized their, quote, invincible alliance with Moscow, showing their commitment to aiding Russia's invasion of Ukraine. South Korean intelligence reports have indicated that thousands of North Korean soldiers have been transported to Russia, with estimates suggesting up to around 10,000 troops are integrated into Russian units or stationed near the Russia-Ukraine border. This deployment initially began sometime back in October and has been happening in phases since. So far, they think about 2,000 North Koreans have died fighting for Russia. Voice of America reports that in a joint statement released by the United States last Monday, 10 countries and the EU have called North Korea's increasing involvement in the war a, quote, dangerous expansion of the conflict. So the first thing I have to wonder is, what do you think they actually get out of helping Russia in Ukraine? I know that North Korea is kind of cloaked in mystery. We don't know a whole lot about them, but what do you think?
When you brought this up to me earlier this week, I was interested and in reading about it. I found myself seeking more and more information because I feel like that was kind of the question that I had. But the very first thing that came to my mind is sort of the more that they help Russia, the more that they have a connection to the outside world, right? Because much of the world has sanctioned North Korea.
Yeah, they don't have many friends.
No, they don't. And although I'm sure many Taiwanese people may not like this comparison. I feel like North Korea kind of does the Taiwanese thing of like trying to find friends wherever they can, so long as it's not finding them within someone they've decided is an enemy of their goals.
For rather different reasons,
yeah,
in a way.
But I kind of found myself thinking that there were some like strategic similarities, right? So tying together, for example, national pride in a conflict that may not necessarily be yours, or comparing experiences.
Yeah, technically, this shouldn't have anything to do with North Korea. I mean, they're very far away from Ukraine.
Speech, a lot of the speech as well focused on like you really upheld the national dignity of the Democratic Republic of Korea and like focusing on nationalism. What I did find interesting was the more that I read about it, it does seem like perhaps North Korea, or at least analysts believe, I was reading something by the South China Post about it, that maybe North Korea is trying to pivot more towards Russia and away from China. Because China is now getting closer with South Korea. And so they need like an answering power or somebody kind of in their corner when they want to face off against the United States and China even, which is always kind of funny because from the United States or from like an Americentric kind of view of world problems, I think that North America tends to view China, Russia, and North Korea as like one problem, one similar problem. But that's not the case. Like they all have their own guy in charge who has their own one specific kind of goal or two or three specific goals and agendas. And the maneuvering that goes on between them isn't something that receives a spotlight in English media news a lot. And so I think this is kind of one of those rare moments of seeing the alliances kind of form or try to work to get themselves leverage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you touched upon this a little bit, but North Korea's beef with America specifically, I think this is also kind of their way of getting back at the United States or sticking it to the United States.
To the West at large.
Right. Because the Western world allies with Ukraine by and large. So this is kind of their way of saying, well, middle finger to you guys. I'm going to back this other one.
More specifically, besides the ideology of it, for North Korea, working together with Russia is an opportunity to maybe update their weapon arsenal. But also to participate in this war provides an opportunity for them to test their own soldiers in a way that they can't do because, again, they're sanctioned and everybody's watching them all the time. So
just get a feel for what they've got working for them.
Get a feel for what it is. Yeah, but also kind of get more technology because I don't imagine Russia will want their allies using out-of-date things if they can help it, right?
I guess the remaining question is just, do you think their involvement will actually amount to much as far as the outcome of the war is concerned? Certainly, it's not a good sign for de-escalating the conflict.
It's not, although it does seem like perhaps North Korea is preparing for that contingency. For example, in that speech, when they were trying to pivot, they made note of the fact that like North Korea will continue partnering with Russia. It was either them or the analysts, but one of them was talking about North Korea will continue partnering with Russia even past a ceasefire or through a ceasefire. Like, we'll keep working together.
I've got your back, man.
Don't worry about it. So I don't know how much it will really help. I mean, I do think it's sort of just a like, both of them are like, we want allies where we can find them. We want bodies where we can find them.
That's the thing. Like, they've lost, if the intel is correct, they've lost 2,000 men, which for a country like North Korea, human resources
not as big as Russia.
I'm saying, like, these are valuable lives that they've lost.
Stuck out to me that there was a huge North Korean squad. I feel like it was like 5,000 people that I saw in it might have been in your Wall Street Journal article or it was in the South China Sea, but a large number of them were on mine removal.
Oh, dear.
Which to me,
I mean, that's feels... like the disposable task.
Now, see, that was the thing is I was like, I don't know that I want to label it that way because I don't know if they were assigned that. I don't know if it's like equally Russian or, like I don't have any of those other details.
It's possible that they just have so little combat experience that they were like, you know what you guys can do? Pick up bombs.
That's the thing is like there's a lot of unknowns. So I don't I don't know that I want to label it as like they are being seen as disposable. Because again, I don't know.
I get the feeling they're getting the short end of the stick.
They might be getting the short end of the stick, but perhaps Kim Jong-un views it as like getting any part of the stick is better than what they had before.
So true. Speaking of getting screwed, which I kind of think North Korea is getting screwed, or perhaps not getting screwed. As of last Thursday, the first day of 2026, China has announced that it will end a decades-long tax exemption on contraceptives by taxing them at the standard 13% value-added tax rate. So, condoms, birth control pills, and similar products are all going to be impacted by this. This represents a major reversal of a policy established back in the early 90s during a time when strict family planning controls were in place, and it's intended not only to encourage higher birth rates, but also to support fiscal measures that are tied to pro-natalist strategies. Some analysts think the tax is largely a symbolic thing since the price increase is relatively small. But more importantly, this comes with some potentially serious consequences in terms of public health. I mean, if you make it harder for certain people, especially young people or those in a lower income bracket, to have safe sex, then that could lead to higher rates of sexually transmitted infections and, yeah, probably some unplanned pregnancies. This is all, of course, pretty absurd on its face. You know, almost every country dealing with record low birth rates, which is most of them right now, mind you, has seemed to try something that completely fails to address the root of the issue. And it seems like a complete farce, honestly, to expect hiking the price of contraception to have any meaningful impact on the birth rate in China or anywhere else. I think probably the bigger thing here is how they want to collect more taxes in general to get themselves out of an economic slump. But one interesting thing stood out to me about this story, and that is that China is considered one of the most expensive countries to raise a child in the world. Did you know that? I actually did not know that.
No, the article that you linked was very illuminating for me on that fact as well. But looking through it, it does make more sense for the reasons they pointed out. It was another like check your knowledge moment, right? Where like the cost of living doesn't necessarily mean like the cost of affordability. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, because I was under the impression that it's China. It's a so-called communist country, you know. Shouldn't they be able to afford to raise a kid?
Well, and also like if you're looking at like relatively speaking, just off the dome known costs of children, a lot of those are cheaper in China. And I'm literally just talking about like food.
Yeah.
You know, like
Basics.
you don't have, I guess, although this doesn't include higher education costs. This only goes through 18.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
but
the
things
key
like
here.
food and clothes are generally cheaper in China. And because you tend to live, these are all broad generalizations, I know, but like you tend to live in a family unit, you have a little bit more support.
Right.
That doesn't ease the child care burden entirely, and it's still mostly borne by women, but it does help a little bit more. So my first thought would be that you might see that in like the price of a child, but it was the opposite.
So just to kind of elaborate, raising a child from birth to 18 in a major city like Beijing or Shanghai can cost $300,000 to $500,000 US for middle to upper income families, primarily due to education, housing, and extracurricular expenses. So for comparison, your typical middle-income family in the United States spends about $250,000 to $300,000 to raise a child to age 18. So crucially, that's not including college.
Notably, when I saw your numbers, I found it interesting that the Chinese figure starts where the U.S. figure ends.
Right.
The top cap of the U.S. figure is where the Chinese figure starts.
I think the main thing coming into play is the cultural difference, which has Chinese parents putting enormous pressure on their kids to succeed academically and investing heavily to that end from the get-go.
Yeah.
Cram schools, tutors, all that from an early age.
Yeah.
Whereas Americans seem to gamble much more on that overpriced and increasingly undervalued college education paying off.
The big elephant in the room that we've not addressed.
Now, this isn't the first time we've talked about birth rates on the program, but it is the first time in a long time that a government has managed to come up with something I find even sillier than Donald Trump offering some cash bonuses for giving birth, or the Japanese government promoting AI-powered matchmaking services.
I didn't know about that till I read this today.
Really?
No,
they did that. They've tried everything except, things that would work. No, but we laugh about it, but the dark thing underpinning this is the idea that people probably realize women are by and large just less interested in having children now. And so governments seem more and more inclined to resort to coercive measures to bump up fertility, such as by making contraceptives or abortions less accessible. Or maybe, just maybe, these ridiculous propositions and negligible changes prove that it's more just for show. And instead of actually trying to encourage more people to give birth, maybe all these governments are just quietly planning to hitch their wagon to robots, helping out when the population crisis hits. What is your take on it, Amanda?
I feel like we have discussed pronatalist policies on this show before.
Yeah.
So to sum up, my opinion on that is they don't work.
I know,
Full stop.
You can't force people to have kids.
But in the attempt to do so, you will put the burden on poor people. I'm just going to say it. You're going to put the burden on poor people and on uneducated people, basically like people who do not have access to resources and money. And if you start removing those resources, you obviously make that pool bigger.
I think they like that, though. They like uneducated and uninformed
That's the thing.
people.
It's like you are now creating a larger pool of people without access and of people without the money to be able to take care of their bodies. And then without that money to take care of their bodies, then to really have as much agency over their lives as people who are rich.
Is a country really that valuable if you populate it with buffoons?
What a interesting question, Hannah, and something we should debate sometime as well. But I mean, that's the thing, is the wealthy and well-connected will always have the number of children they wish to.
That's right.
And they will always be able to provide a life that those children deserve.
And sometimes they're really weird about having as many children as possible.
Looking at you, Mr. Lucky you weren't my year-end 2025 story.
Before we finish up today, I do want to complain about the uber rich for just a little bit and the tacky way they celebrated the new year.
Again.
Yes.
I'm really just complaining about the rich.
Hey, the fun don't stop.
Hey.
So this small Caribbean island called St. Bart's has become kind of the unofficial gathering place for the ultra-wealthy to hold New Year's Eve celebrations. We're talking Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Jordan, kind of all of the usual suspects. And they all took their enormous yachts.
Super yachts.
By St. Bart's. Yeah, so super yachts is actually the word that they use because they're that big.
Yeah.
And there were so many that if you look at the little radar image, the swarm of boats was about as big as half the island itself. I actually first came across this story on Reddit where the top comment was, "Don't worry, though, I'm reusing my plastic straw." And I was like, yeah, you know what? The environmental footprint of a billionaire is almost certainly larger than the footprint you or I would make in several lifetimes.
Take away that almost. Take away that almost.
Now, before I suggest something not radio-friendly, do you think it's even possible on any level using taxes or otherwise to deter the uber-rich from pulling stunts like this, basically without consequence?
It is possible, but it would take huge amounts of international cooperation.
Yeah, what would we have to do?
And unwavering lines.
Assemble the mob.
Well, for example, something that I was reminded of in 2025 is we have successfully, as a world, done things like this in the past. And the one example that I was reminded of that brought that to mind was, remember that hole in the ozone layer caused by aerosol hairsprays?
I remember.
It closed.
It did close.
Because
It
everybody in the
healed.
world was
Yeah.
like, hey, we should
let's
stop
not
using
do this.
aerosol hairsprays. And it's more than hairsprays, right? But
Right.
the chemical that was in those hairsprays, we should stop using those because we need the ozone, right? And it worked. That was it. That was an international moment of cooperation where everybody was like, wow, this is super bad. We should probably take care of this.
Right.
It's not the same world that it was then.
No
But
kidding.
there are a lot of people that have the same concerns. And that also includes people in government. So if I were to answer it seriously, and if we were to look at this as like, could we try to make the uber wealthy manage their energy footprint?
Okay.
Because there's so much that I could say.
It's a litany of
manage
crimes.
their energy footprint from private jets to everything else. It would take a very large amount of united international pressure because it would require countries not making exceptions, even though they could make a lot of money because that's the tool that would be used.
Right, of
and
course.
also pressure on those people who were in power to not use that money, and also the countries where the uber wealthy are the people who are the leader of it.
It's unfortunate because there are
Looking at the
so
United
many
States.
there are so many fanboys, mostly fanboys, I would say. I guess probably some fangirls of these really rich people who are convinced that they became that way because they are somehow elite and superior.
Bootstrap Smith.
Right. So
I feel like 2026 is the year that if you can, you should attempt to disabuse your friends of billionaire fanboyship or
I
fangirlship.
agree.
We don't need billionaire fandom anymore. We need billionaire responsibility.
We need billionaire haters.
If that's what drives change, then I'm here for it. I won't say no.
Well, that's it for today's news report. A quick reminder that you can find all of our referenced articles in the show notes for today's episode.
What a line to end on.
That's right. I'm Hannah Valinsky.
I'm Amanda Stevens.
Thanks for joining us on air today. Tune in tomorrow for more programs by Radio Taiwan International. And in the meantime, remember to stop scrolling.
Hate billionaires.
Yeah, and hate billionaires and touch
And
grass.
touch grass.
We'll see you next week.
Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, SoundOn Podcast, Spotify. You name it, we're on it. You can find selected shows produced by RTI's English team on different streaming services. All you have to do is search for the show or type RTI. Find an episode you find interesting, hit play, and you'll learn more about Taiwan and its people.